You could explain the mythology through a conflict by doing things like this person comes into the town and they make a social faux pas, something that is forbidden in the culture and society, and maybe they end up in prison, or maybe they end up in like a fight or a conflict and they don't understand why. And in the aftermath, what you would see is some sort of explanation via dialogue and action at why this is offensive. And actually, in some cases, it's fun to not tell right away. A character comes into the culture and they get into this conflict because, I don't know, maybe they shake with their left hand in their culture, and in their culture, a number of human cultures, before there was toilet paper, before there were bidets, I know this is gross, but people would wipe their butt with their left hands. And so offering your left hand could be extremely offensive. Shoes in many cultures are very offensive. There's a lot of cultures out there, several dozen cultures, that if you throw a shoe at someone, it's like giving them the middle finger. So there's a lot of opportunity there to say, this person ended up in jail and maybe they're there for weeks, and maybe what they do is they talk to a prisoner and slowly get to know pieces of the culture over time, and then finally when they go to the court, that you have violated such and such a law. But it's a really interesting way of building tension, and also helping the reader kind of out, because again, as I've said in the last live stream, you don't want to overwhelm people. You want to give them pieces. You want to, like a real person growing up in a culture, you want to give them a little bits by little bits by little bits. So how much is too much? I would think what you can get a good idea. Beta readers are really helpful in this case, especially if you're talking about writing. If you're talking about a visual setting, there's so much you can do with mythology just by, like in film. Film has so many advantages in the visual medium. And this is why you so often see books don't translate well to film, and people get really uppity about their like how the didn't match what was in their head and various other things, right? But like, so film has an advantage because you can show a whole bunch of mythological structures, be it religious icons, architecture, clothing, all this stuff that would imply mythological stuff. When writing, you're going to be describing little bits. You might be, through dialogue, someone adjusts their shirt or their clothes, or maybe they won't refuse to take off their hats, even though in your culture it's a respectful thing. So you're going to be thinking about unique and creative ways of conflict, really, or misunderstandings. Even in a culture where you have a situation, and I mentioned this last time, sorry guys, I don't mean to plug my own stuff here, but just as an easy, quick example, for my book, Mimi of the Nowhere, what you'll see is that there's a lot of people who have questions very quickly about, well, why does the world work this way? What the hell is a biorecycler? Why does it smell bad? One character is a telepath, but she thinks she's the only telepath in the whole wide world, and halfway through the novel she descends upon, or discovers, or rather they find her, an order of telepaths that have a very long history. And so as they're training her, she gets an explanation of some of the history of telepathy. So that's kind of a way of approaching this myth structure. It's really just thinking about, how do you keep from doing too much info dumping in one setting? And I don't know if there's a set number. Different genres have different levels of patience with info dumping. Historical fiction, fantasy, and sci-fi can get away with quite a bit more info dumping if done strategically. I usually recommend a situation if you're doing a really complex world, what they call in media res. So in the middle of conflict, you're dropping a character, there's a middle of a conflict somewhere, or pretty quickly there will be conflict, and then having them work their way out, getting the reader invested. And once the reader is invested, they're much more curious about the world. and then just each chapter, or every so often you're dropping more information for the reader to digest. I think that's the way to go.